So it's the 2nd of March, and we will continue from where we have stopped last week, which is chapter number 27, canto number 20, canto number 3. So, can anyone explain to me very, very briefly what are these chapters all about? Right? So, who are the personalities in this discussion?
Lord Kapila and his mother Devahuti.
Wonderful. So, Kapila Dev instructed his mother Devahuti in the science of Sankhya Yoga. So, Sankhya Yoga is a very ancient philosophical system which essentially analyzes the entire elemental makeup of the physical universe, right? And it's important because when we break everything down into the elements, is everybody muted? Then what happens is it systematically directs one to the root of all the existence, right? Who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, it just cultivates devotional service. Because what we are doing is, once we bring everything down to the element form, then we are essentially distinguishing spirit from the matter, right? And therefore, we become more and more detached from the material, and we become wholeheartedly attached to Krishna. So let me give you an example, all right? You may have someone who loves wine or beer. But using this philosophy, when you break down wine into the constituents, which is its grape, which is fermented, maybe with some yeast or whatever. And then if you look at beer, which is hops, which is fermented with yeast, blah, blah, blah. And then when you break down even further, right, then you begin to realize that, actually these are all small, small elements which is making up this stuff, which is, essentially making me so attracted to it, right? Putting me into so much of illusion. So the moment we start breaking things down into smaller elements, then we realize that actually, why am I getting so attracted to this? Why do I not channel my attention to the person, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has actually provided all of these elements, instead of me getting attached to what these elements are, essentially building? Why don't I get attached to the person who has given me all of these elements? Okay. Does it make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji.
All right. So similarly, if you look at Sankhya Yoga in a more detailed form, is what it's doing is the entire philosophy is breaking down all the elements into this, the entire material manifestation into these 24 elements. Our 5 working senses, our voice, our hands, right? Our legs, our genitals, our anus, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, which is our eyes, our ears, our nose, so on and so forth, our 5 sense objects, the sense of taste, the sense of form, smell, the 5 gross elements, which is earth, water, fire, air, and ether or space. Then the 3 subtle elements, right? In our subtle body, our mind, our intelligence, our ego, and finally the consciousness or the soul. So essentially, when Lord Krishna, right, gave these instructions to Brahmaji, all of this was actually provided to Brahmaji. And what Brahmaji had to do was just put all of these elements together and construct, right, our bodies, uh, the material for construction, etc. Okay. So that's what Sankhya Yoga is all about, breaking everything down into the constituent parts. so that we begin to realize the relationship between the material and the spiritual. We begin to appreciate, um, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whom has given us all of this. Just a minute. Okay. So, coming back to the Sankhya Yoga philosophy. So, essentially, if you look at the entire discussions of Lord Kapila Dev and Devahuti, where she's asking her son, who is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, about devotional service. My entire life I've been so engaged in the material. What can I do right now? Okay, your father has already taken sannyas and he has gone to the forest, right, to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, you, as my son, please explain to me what I should do, how I should go about orchestrating my life. And therefore, you know, Kapila Dev starts explaining to her the entire process of going from karma yoga, right? And then starting to do the righteous activities, and then slowly becoming detached and becoming in full service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we can actually classify, all right, every living entity. Of course, we do not need to be judgmental, but, in this 2 by 2 matrix, which is material and spiritual, right? Material and Krishna. So one who is very attracted to the material, right? And at the same time detached from Krishna, this person is a pure materialist. One who is detached from the material and at the same time detached from Krishna, then this person is, while he's detached from material, that means he is getting into spirituality. But this person is an impersonalist. Essentially, what this person does is he is believing just in the universal form of the Lord, in the energy of the Lord. He does not see the supreme person, all right, as the highest. And these are called the impersonalists. And then you would have those devotees, okay? Many of us like this. We are called, uh, you know, this process is essentially bhakti, mishra bhakti, which is essentially we are mixed devotee, right? We are attached or attracted to the material, and at the same time, we are also attracted to Krishna. And then you would have the pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, etc., who are essentially, they are totally detached from the material and they are full 100% attached to Krishna. So Kapila Dev's instructions to Devahuti is essentially getting everyone to appreciate this 4 by 4, 2 by 2 metrics, and also getting us to this platform of being detached from the material and being attached or attracted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That should be our final goal in life. That should be our purpose, right? Until and unless we get to this stage, what is going to happen is we will have to come back into this material world again and again and again, right? Until we have perfected the art of becoming a pure devotee, right? Because Maya Devi, right? Material nature, she's not going to allow us to just go into the spiritual world until she is 100% certain that this person is qualified to go to the spiritual world. Otherwise, she will keep us in check in this material world because she doesn't want us to go and disturb the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay? She's a wonderful servant of Krishna. And therefore, she wants to ensure that anyone who, right, who goes to the spiritual world, to Goloka Vrindavan or to Vaikunta, is totally eligible for entry to that realm. I'll take a pause here to see if all of this is making sense. Okay, wonderful. So then we also discussed that, Kapila Dev, he stressed that the mind must be freed from the impurities of the three modes of material nature or the gunas, right? So we went very deep into this discussion in the last 2, 3 weeks, essentially telling us that, if we do not have control over our mind, we will remain in check in this material world, right? So we have the modes of ignorance, the modes of passion, and the modes of goodness constantly attacking us. Even the mode of goodness is not sufficient to release us from this from this material world. We need to be in the mode of pure goodness before we can be elevated into the spiritual world. Because what the mode of goodness does is, yes, we will engage in good activities, in charitable activities, etc. But all of this, they still, right? They still leave us in this material world to enjoy the fruits of our labor, the fruits of our activities. So it's important for us to orchestrate our activities in such a way that our mind can be freed from the impurities, right? And and all of us know that only after such purification can the mind become attached to the Lord. Until such a stage, it's not possible for the mind to be attached to the Lord. It might be a little bit attached, but at the same time, there's also attachment to the material, like we saw in the 2 by 2 earlier on. So there are many, many processes of controlling the mind, right? Uh, but what Bhagavatam is actually teaching us is, yes, there is Astanga Yoga process, the 8 stages, which we will go through again. But the easiest and the sure short way of purifying our mind is the process of bhakti, right? So bhakti is the best process for transforming our mind, especially if we are practicing this in the association of saintly people, because the association of pure devotees, it will awaken shraddha of faith in us, and it will also awaken the rati, which is the attraction for the Lord, and it will then ensure that we get into pure prema slowly, or pure devotion, right? So just practicing it by ourselves, it's not going to be potent. But the moment you practice this in the association of devotees, then you will realize that, wow, the entire purification of our mind becomes more potent. Okay. So in in the Bhagavatam, there are many, 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 many stories of how, if one becomes attached to such saintly personalities, the doors to liberation become open. We can't do it by ourselves, right? We saw actually Bharat Maharaj, when he left, not the Ramayan's Bharat Maharaj, when he left everything, his kingdom, etc., and renounced himself to the forest, all alone, he became attached to the deer, all right? And he had to come back again in the form of the deer. But the Lord is very kind. The Lord allowed him to remember his pastimes. And so when he was born again, he ensured that, you know, he remained, you know, um, he remained detached. At the same time, when he was um, in the company of other personalities, he behaved like he did not have um, he behaved in such a way where everyone regarded him like, he was like a simpleton, quite a foolish person who do not know what he was doing. But internally, he was just focused on fortifying his bhakti, right? So, and in many other cases, whenever personalities became close to Narada Muni, for example, they became great devotees. Okay, many examples in Bhagavatam. You know, be it Dhruva Maharaj, etc. So, as one engages in this uncontaminated bhakti, then there will be various symptoms of spiritual advancement. Okay, so when we engage in uncontaminated bhakti, what is uncontaminated bhakti? Uncontaminated bhakti essentially is that when you are engaging in devotional service for the sake of pleasing the Lord, it is not to get something in return, right? And it's uninterrupted, unmotivated. That is the definition of uncontaminated bhakti. But it doesn't matter. When you start off, we may have inclinations for certain ones, etc. But while engaging in this process, right, this contaminated bhakti will also evolve or be filtered into uncontaminated bhakti. So it's okay if we start off with having certain desires, right? Because in the entire process of devotional service, all these desires will also go off, right? So when one engages in this uncontaminated bhakti, which is unmotivated and uninterrupted, then various spiritual advancement symptoms will appear, right? Can anyone explain some of these symptoms? These symptoms of spiritual advancement? Shalini Mataji, you always answer this question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, we feel satisfied. We feel content. We feel
Santosh. Yes, Santosh, you feel so contented, you feel so satisfied. You feel your inclinations for this material becomes less and less and less. Correct?
Yes, give rise to detachment.
That's right. Yes. So therefore, devotion is so valuable because practitioners, actually of any other yoga system, they still require some element of bhakti to be incorporated in order to achieve the goal. All right. So even if someone is a karma yogi where I'm doing my material activities without any attachment and I'm devoting the results to the Lord, it still requires bhakti for perfection. I can be an Astanga yogi, but towards the last phases, all right, once you have controlled your mind, you have controlled everything, when you want to get into this liberation or samadhi stage, you still require bhakti. All right. So in any process, any other yoga process, you need bhakti to perfect it. All right. So why not just start with bhakti yoga? Right. We have learned in our Bhagavad Gita classes that instead of going, step by step by step, you can actually take the elevator up of bhakti yoga. So that's what the entire discussions have been to date. And now we will get into the remaining verses of chapter number 27. And Krishna willing, we will also get into chapter number 28. So, text 12, the presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized, first as a reflection on water, and again as a second reflection on the walls of a room, although the sun is situated in the sky. Right? So we discussed this last time. Right? And then in text number 13, the self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego and then in the body, in the senses, and in the mind. So essentially what this particular verse is explaining, if you read the purport, is that this I am is called the ego. All right. I am this body. I'm an Indian. I'm a Singaporean. I'm 55 years old. Right? So this I am is ego or identification of the self. Right? So I am this body or everything in relation to the body is mine. All right, that's becoming that like false ego. But when one is self-realized and think that actually this body is just the material covering, when I go deep inside, I'm not even the mind. I'm not even the intelligence. All right. But I'm just an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Right? And therefore, that identification is the real ego. But the false ego is I'm this body, everything is in relationship to my body. Right? So that is the real ego versus the false ego. So when we say that we give up our ego, this means that we give up this false ego, right? But the real ego is always present, which is that I am a spirit soul. Okay, so that's what text number 13 is explaining if you read Prabhupada's purport. So we need to go beyond the bodily conception of life and remember that deep down, I'm just a spirit soul. What's all this big, big ego in me that, I'm this, I'm that, etc. I'm just actually 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. That's the size of me. All right. And I'm a eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. So now, text number 14. Although a devotee appears to be merged in the five material elements, the objects of material enjoyment, the material senses, the material mind and intelligence, he is understood to be awake and to be freed from this false ego. Right? So essentially, a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, he may remain apparently merged in this kind of, this 24 elements, but we know that he is aloof from all of this because he's 100% focused as the eternal servitor of the Lord. Okay. Then text number 15. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as the seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distress, thinking himself to be lost. Okay, let's dissect this statement into the different parts. The living entity, all right, can clearly feel his existence as the seer. That means he's aloof from the entire body as the spirit soul. But because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of the deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distress, thinking himself to be lost. So Prabhupada in the purport, he gives an amazing analogy. A person who has lost a great sum of money may think that he's lost, but actually he's not lost. Only his money is lost. Okay? But due to the absorption in the money, the identification with the money, he therefore thinks that he is lost. Okay? So similarly, when we falsely identify with the material, right? With the material as our field of activities, then we think we are lost, although actually we are not. Because as soon as a person is awakened to the pure knowledge of understanding that he is the eternal servitor of the Lord, then his real position is revived. Okay? So a living entity can never be lost in that sense. When one forgets his deep identity, all right, when one forgets his deep identity when he's in deep sleep, he becomes absorbed in sleeps, in the dreams, and he may think himself a different person, or he may think himself lost, but actually his identity is still intact. Okay. So, just for a moment, just think, right? you know, someone who is at the time of death, okay, that person will be totally lost. Like, what do I do? All right. I was totally attached to all my wealth, to all my family members, to whatever I felt was mine. But now everything is going to be taken away. So this person is totally lost. He doesn't know what to do because he has reached the final moments of his life. But if that person is totally attached to this thinking that I'm just a spirit soul, right? Along this journey, everything was provided to me by the Supreme Lord. Actually, He's the full proprietor of everything. I'm just a spirit soul. Everything is just given to me, all right, because of my karma. And if it's given to me, it can also be taken away at any one time. But deep down, I need to realize that I'm lost if I keep on thinking of these attachments. But the moment I think that I'm an eternal servant of the Lord, then nothing can actually shake us and we will never be lost. I'll take a pause here to see if this is making sense to everyone. Any questions you have? Do you want me to explain this in any other word? Otherwise, I can ask Ravi Prabhu or Anuj Prabhu or any of you to explain this. All okay with this?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
I'm not clear about the context of this sentence because the previous text is about the devotee, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still talking about a devotee who understands the separation from the of the ego from the self, and then is going through a phase. Is it a temporary phase?
Um,
I mean, coming from the text 14, then going
yeah,
to text 15.
14, 14 may be speaking about a devotee, right, who understands that, these 24 elements or 23 elements are in support of the 24th element, which is the super soul, the soul, all right, the consciousness. So you have these 23 elements over there supporting me in this material world. But at the end of the day, if you take away these 23 elements, this this spirit soul, who is the deepest me, all right, he is a eternal servant of the Lord. Okay. So even if all these 23 elements at the end of the day are taken away from me, I'm not lost because I know who my spiritual father is. I will never be lost. All right. But when a person is so attached to these 23 elements, then if any of these 23 elements are taken away from us, this person would be lost because he's not a devotee. He doesn't understand his constitutional position, right? I'll give you an example. There was once I had a injury on my ankle, and it was a hairline crack, and I was on crutches, and my kids were really small at that time, and my wife was busy cooking in the kitchen, and my child was crying and crying and crying, but I had, I couldn't move, right? I couldn't move because I was in deep pain, and I was like really upset with myself because I was um, the entire consciousness was around my inability. I felt lost because I couldn't move. Right? I was in deep pain. I couldn't move, and therefore I couldn't provide comfort to my crying child. Right? And I felt bad. I was in reliance of someone else to come and help me. I felt lost because I was in total attachment to these 23 elements, even the movement, etc. All right. But if I taken a step back and told myself that actually I'm a spirit soul, I would have not been lost. It's a crude example, but
No,
it's
no, it
telling you.
explains, yeah, it clarified my doubt. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. There was one more doubt in the previous text 13. The
Uh-huh.
term threefold refers to threefold. What is threefold ego?
All right. So threefold ego, I am, all right. So there's the real ego, which is that I am the spirit soul. Okay. Then the second ego becomes the false ego, which is I am this body.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where the false ego comes in. And everything in relation to the body is mine, belongs to me. All right. So, in the purest sense, the true ego is that I'm a spirit soul. Then the second type of ego is I'm this body. And the third form of ego is I have this, I have my house, I have my job, I have this car, I have this, everything else. All right. So everything in relation to this material body, that is the third form of the ego. So the first ego, which is just the self, that is the pure ego or the true ego.
Okay.
Then the rest of it is the false ego, which is I'm the body, and the other elements in relation to the body, those are the false ego.
Thanks. Thank you. Because you have all, like, my understanding was always that these two are distinctly apart.
Yes.
So the one who is self-realized is automatically doesn't have ego. So that's distinct from the other two categories. So this was an interesting understanding. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have the real ego, which is the identification of the soul. And then the other one is my body and everything else which I belong. Those two are the false ego.
Okay.
Right. So when we say that we give up our ego, this simply means that we give up our false ego. But the real ego is always present. That
Right.
I am a spirit soul and I am constitutionally a servant of the Lord. Okay. Frankly, when I read this, I was bewildered. And I only could understand this after reading Srila Prabhupada's purports. And that's the reason why it's so important to read Prabhupada's purports. Okay. All right. Then we move on. Number 16. Right. So when by mature understanding, one can realize his individuality, and yet he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the situation he accepts under false ego becomes manifest to him. All right. So simple, right? Only with the mature understanding we can realize that this body is given to me because of my karma. Whatever activities which I am doing, all right, I need to understand first and foremost that I'm just a spirit soul, right? If my activities are dovetailed towards Krishna consciousness, towards a service to the Supreme, then these are activities in the mode of pure goodness. But the moment I identify with the body only, I identify with all my belongings and I serve my body, I serve my own pleasure, and I serve what I feel is part of mine, then that puts me in the mode of passion, ignorance, and goodness. And that ensures that I come back into this material world again and again and again. Okay. Then we move on to text number 17. Devahuti inquired, my dear Brahmana, does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul? Since one is attracted to the other eternity, to the other eternally, how is this separation possible? Such an important question, right? She's asking her son, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This material nature, right? The three modes of material nature, can they give release to the spirit soul? Can the spirit soul leave this material nature and go back to the spiritual world? Because at the end of the day, we are so attracted to the material nature. Okay. So she's asking this question. Is this possible? Okay. Actually, we need to understand that everything comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything. Right? We as a spirit soul, we are just a small marginal potency of the Lord. Okay. Constitutionally, we may be the same as the Lord, but we are so tiny and the Lord is infinity. Okay. We are just a small spark. Constitutionally, we may be the same as the Lord, but the Lord is infinite and we are so tiny. Okay. That's what the spiritual spark is all about. And the material energy, the material universe, all these other 24 elements, these are the 23 elements, these are the external potency of the Lord. Okay, so I am the marginal potency, and the material nature is the external potency of the Lord. Okay, then we move on to text number 18. As there's no separate existence of the earth and its aroma, water and its taste, there cannot be any separate existence of intelligence and consciousness. Okay, so Kapila Dev is beginning to explain. Hence, even though he is the passive performer of activities, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as the material nature acts on him and binds him? Okay, so it goes back to, Bhagavad Gita. It's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, right? So there's a very important verse, Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai, which is the living entity acts according to the qualities or the modes of material nature. He falsely think that he's acting, but unfortunately, he is passive. In other words, all right, the material nature is actually forcing him to act in a certain way. He has that minute independence, but at the same time, he is bound by this material energy. Right? So it's very important for us to ensure that, we are constantly in the mode of goodness around us. All right? Because we are not so pure and powerful where these material modes cannot affect us. So these material modes, they keep on attacking us, ensuring that, we remain in this material world. Unless we are a pure soul who can, somehow be not affected by these three modes of material nature. Okay. So one falsely thinks that he's acting, but unfortunately he's passive. In other words, he has no opportunity to get out of the control of material nature because it is conditioning him. But one who has surrendered himself to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, that person can be freed from this Maya. Okay. So these three modes of material nature will continue to bind us. We can only be unbound by one who is not bound. Who is the person who is not bound? The Lord himself or the spiritual master who is a pure devotee. Everyone else is bound. And therefore, only these two personalities can actually unbind us. All right. Otherwise, these three modes of material nature are constantly attacking us. Okay. So that's what the purports are explaining. Ravi Prabhu, Anuj Prabhu, anyone else, would you like to give some commentary on what we have just discussed in the last two verses? While I take a short sip of water.
Yeah, it's correct, Prabhuji, that Devahuti is asking like questions from a material perspective, that how can consciousness, intelligence be separate from body. But if we have read the Bhagavad Gita, and if we believe in God and existence in itself, we will understand that God is in control and we are part of Him. And as you explained, like very nicely, that the soul, the soul gets attached to all the other 23 elements and thinks of itself, as a matter rather than a pure soul, as a pure entity. So that is where all the confusion happens, that the soul is bound by all these other 23 elements. So Kapila Dev is actually, like he's now giving all that knowledge to his mother, which is, yeah, which is enlightening also all of us.
Any other points by anyone else? Thank you very much, Anush Prabhu. So we'll move on. Text number 20. Even if the great danger of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry into the fundamental principle, it may still appear again because its cause has not ceased. Okay. So sometimes temporarily we may feel that, okay, right, I'm going to engage in this activity. I'm going to engage in this yoga system. I'm going to start chanting. All right. I'm going to start reading the Bhagavatam, etc. All right. And, but it is not a sustained activity. Okay. Many of us, maybe even all of us, all right, we will always have our ups and our downs, our ups and downs. All right. So this notion of having our ups and our downs tells us that, you know, we may think that this great fear of bondage to the material elements, okay, is gone, but actually it continues because our bhakti is not sustained, right? And therefore, it has to be a deliberate practice on a day by day, day to day basis. Otherwise, what's going to happen is these cycles of ups and downs is not going to be sustaining our bhakti, is not going to be bringing us on this ladder, this 9-step ladder towards prema. And what's going to happen is we will continue to be enveloped by these three modes of material nature. And then in text number 21, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service onto me. Okay. The word is serious. Earlier on, I mentioned deliberate practice, serious. Okay. If we do not have a deliberate practice on a daily basis, if we are not seriously discharging devotional service, if we are not constantly hearing for a long time about the Lord and also from the Lord, then these ups and downs will always be there. Okay. I'll be vulnerable to share with you after coming back from, my trip in India. I went immediately to Japan. After Japan, I came back. I was struggling to chant my rounds. I was struggling. All right. And last Thursday, or was it Wednesday, I told myself, this cannot continue. Right. And therefore, I deliberately told myself I needed to change. Right. So in devotional service, there will always be ups and downs. Right. And we need to be honest to ourselves. Right. Um, what's my purpose? Uh, this slackening, is it going to help me? Right. Just like exercise. Right. There will be days when we want to go for long walks, we want to go to the gym, etc. And then, we become lazy. So without this deliberate practice, it's not going to serve whatever we are wanting to achieve. Similarly, we know what our end purpose of life is all about. Without this deliberate practice, without seriously discharging devotional service onto the Supreme Person, this is not going to be possible. And all of us struggle. I'm not sure about Anuj and Ravi and the rest of them, but I struggle in this process. Right? I struggle in this process. The three modes of material nature are constantly attacking us.
We are all
Right?
struggling, Prabhuji. And we need the daily japa motivation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Right? So if one is in contact, and Prabhupada gives a wonderful analogy. If someone is in contact with the police department, that does not mean he's a criminal. Okay? Just like a spiritual master, a pure devotee, he's in the material world. That doesn't mean that he's a criminal, or he doesn't mean that he's, mundane like us. So if someone is in contact with the police department, that does not mean he's a criminal. As long as one does not commit criminal acts, even though he is in the police department, he is not punished. Similarly, the pure devotee, like our spiritual master or a liberated soul, he can remain in this material world and is not affected by it. Okay? So karma will bind us. Okay? Whatever activities which we do, if they are not in pure goodness, if they are not dovetailed to Krishna consciousness, they will bind us in this material world. Right? And therefore, one has to act in such a way that in spite of being in this material world, he is not affected by this contamination. Because anything else done otherwise, without the satisfaction of Vishnu or Yagya, produces bondage. And therefore, Kapila Muni is once again prescribing that one can transcend this material entanglement by acting seriously in Krishna consciousness or seriously engaging in devotional service. Waking up early for Mangalarti, right? Deliberately practicing the chanting of the holy name, meditating, visualizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not just doing arti for the sake of arti, but understanding the why behind doing the arati, not just singing kirtan for the sake of singing, but understanding, the real lyrics behind the kirtan and bringing about a change in our heart. That is all deliberate practice of Krishna consciousness. Text number 22. The devotional service has to be performed strongly in perfect knowledge, which I've just explained. Even when we are doing arti, we need to understand why we are doing an arti. All right, we have explained this meaning of arti many, many times as an example. And with transcendental vision. All right, so anything which is done, we need to understand the why behind it. We need to understand the motivation behind this. We need to understand that this is being offered, okay, as our service, our pure service to a Supreme Person. One must be strongly renounced and must engage in austerity and perform mystic yoga in order to be firmly fixed in self-absorption. Okay, so, right, so, yeah, very nicely explained. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be performed blindly, right, due to material emotion or mental concoction. It's a scientific process. If you want to see the final experimental results, then we need to follow this as a scientific process. Okay? And therefore has to be in full knowledge of the Supreme and by visualizing the absolute truth. Okay? So then number 23, the influence of material nature, it covers the living entity, and thus it is as if the living entity were always in a blazing fire. But by the process of seriously discharging devotional service, this influence can be removed, just as wooden sticks which cause a fire are themselves consumed by it. All right, so these three modes, they can themselves be burned off, all right, by this process of material nature. Right? Wonderful analogy Prabhupada is, Devahuti, Kapil Dev is providing to his mother, just like wooden sticks which cause the fire are themselves consumed by it. So a devotee in full Krishna consciousness appears, superficially to be a great karmi, always working. But then deep inside, right, the inner significance of the devotee's activities is that they are meant for the satisfaction of the Lord. And that is called bhakti. So in the case of Arjuna, right, uh, he may apparently be a fighter, but by his fighting, he's actually satisfying the senses of the Lord. And therefore he became a devotee. Krishna told him to fight. Don't fight for victory or for loss or for the kingdom. Fight as a service to me because I'm telling you to fight. If you don't do this, know for sure that I've actually already killed all of them. Right? I've already killed the opposing party. You just become an instrument in what I am telling you to do. Okay, so that's text number 23. Now, text number 24. By discovering the faultiness of his desiring to lord over the material nature and therefore giving it up, the living entity becomes independent and stands in his own glory. Easy to understand? The devotee begins to understand that, just lording it over the material nature is my foolishness because everything is given to me temporarily. At the time of death, everything is taken away from me. And then text number 25. In the dreaming state, one's consciousness is almost covered and one sees many inauspicious things. But when he's awakened and fully conscious, such inauspicious things cannot bewilder him. Right? So for a pure devotee, all right, these three modes do not affect him. And even, right, something doesn't go as he would have imagined. He is totally calm and equipoised because he knows that my spiritual father, Sri Krishna, he has my best interests. Even if something which I did not expect is happening, I know for sure that the final end result is going to be good because I only can see one note, right? But the Supreme Person can actually see the entire symphony. Right? I can only see one note, but the Lord can actually see the entire symphony. So the influence of the material nature cannot harm an enlightened soul, even though he engages in material activities, because he knows the truth of the Lord or the Absolute, and his mind is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although he's working in this material world, although he may look like, he is in, the everything is, he's part of the material world, he's working, etc. But nothing can actually affect him because he's totally an enlightened soul. And we come to the final parts. When a person thus engages in devotional service and self-realization for many, many years and births, he becomes completely reluctant to enjoy any of the material planets, even if it's Brahma Loka or Satya Loka. All right? He becomes fully developed in consciousness. Then Krishna says, or Kapila Dev says, my devotee actually becomes self-realized by my unlimited causeless mercy. So over here, Krishna is explaining that you cannot do it by yourself. Mercy has to come from the Lord. You cannot do it by yourself. And that's the reason why at the beginning of our class, at the beginning of our prayers, we always ask for the Lord's mercy. Okay, so my devotee actually becomes self-realized by my unlimited causeless mercy. And thus, when freed from all doubts, he steadily progresses towards his destined abode, which is directly under the protection of my spiritual energy, of unadulterated bliss. This is the ultimate perfectional goal of life. Thus, giving up the present material body, the mystic devotee goes to the transcendental abode and never comes back. Okay, easy to understand. Huh? The Lord's mercy, okay, allows us to be totally unbound by the three modes of material nature. And the same mercy, all right, fortifies our devotional service and therefore allows us to go back home, back to Godhead. When a perfect yogi's attention is no longer attracted to the byproducts of mystic power, which are manifestations of external energy, his progress towards me becomes unlimited, and thus the power of death cannot overcome him. Okay, so with that, we come to the conclusion of chapter number 27, Canto number 3, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki
Jai.
Jai. All right. So now we move on to number 28. Right. So Kapila Dev briefly outlines the process of the eightfold yoga system or Astanga Yoga. You can see from this chart over here, right? These yogis today in the community clubs or in all of these yoga centers, they do not do the entire process, and yet they call it Astanga Yoga. All right. But Astanga Yoga is so much deeper. It begins with yamas, understanding what the regulations are, right? We know no meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, all right? And what's the last one? No
No
illicit,
gambling.
no gambling, no meat eating, no illicit sex,
No intoxication.
and
Picture.
no intoxications. Yeah. All right. So, but if you go to any of the yoga centers, they don't explain this. And then there's also the niyam, what you need to do, right? Waking up during Brahma Muhurat, etc. Then you have the posture, sitting up straight, okay? Sitting up straight, and then having the right posture during your asanas, and then pranayam, which is the breath control, and then you have the pratyahara, which is withdrawal of the senses, and then you have dharana, which is concentration, and then you have the dhyana, which is meditation. And then you have samadhi, which is full absorption. And the ultimate purpose of all these yogic practices is not just merely to control the body or the mind, but to absorb one's consciousness in the Supreme Lord. Okay? So you can go through this 8 process. Otherwise, you can just go directly to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is direct. All right? And these other processes are sort of indirect. Because in Bhakti Yoga, this entire 8 process is already included. Okay? Does it make sense? Okay. Would you like to go through a guided process of, of chanting using some of these processes of breath control, posture, withdrawal of the senses, concentration, etc.? Would you like to do that? We can do for 10 minutes.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can do.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, I would like all of you to just relax and right, close your eyes.
Do we need our beads, Prabhuji?
No, don't have
Okay.
to have the beats. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I just want you all to close your eyes, right? Just wanting to invite you to take a moment to settle into a very comfortable seated position. And you can sit cross-legged on the floor, or you can sit in a chair. but important to have your feet planted to the ground. Okay? Whatever allows you to remain tall yet relaxed. Okay? So you're standing tall, relax, lengthen your spine, relax your shoulders, and rest your hands on the knees or on your lap. Close your eyes. If you're all relaxed and your posture straight, let's begin by taking 3 slow, deep breaths all together. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale and exhale. With each exhalation, let go of any tensions of the week. Set aside any worries you may have, any distractions you may have, because this is your time to be fully present. Exhale. Remove the distractions of timelines. Remove the distractions of your bosses. Remove any other distractions in your mind at this stage. Just be fully present. Keep your eyes closed and breathe. In Bhakti tradition, we invite the spiritual energy or the divine grace into our practice. So you can think of this as calling upon the highest love, the wisdom, or your chosen form of the divine. And if you like, you can silently repeat a prayer or intention. Something simple like, may my heart open to receive spiritual guidance and inner peace. Inhale, exhale. And allow this sacred intention of you wanting this grace from the Lord to create a warm, supportive space within you. And imagine your mind, your heart becoming receptive, like a flower opening to gently receive the sunlight. Now that you have set your intention in wanting to receive the mercy and the grace of the Lord, bring your attention to your breath again. Notice the natural rhythm. You don't have to force or strain this anymore. Feel the breath flowing in and out. In and out. Very calming, and at the same time steadying the mind. In, out, in, out. Just feel how each inhale draws in fresh energy and each exhale releases any tension or heaviness you might be carrying in your heart. So we have gone through the asana, the posture. We have gone through our pranayam or the breath control. And with the exhale, we have withdrawn all our senses or the pratyahara. And in this entire process, we are getting into dharana or concentration. And we are getting into dhyana, which is the beginning of meditation. And now in this practice, we will work with the sacred sounds known as the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This mantra is chanted in a call of love and devotion towards the divine presence within as well as around us. Breathe in again. Breathe out. Breathe in again. Breathe out. And let's chant it softly and mindfully, allowing the sound vibrations to gently guide our awareness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You can also chant with me, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this mantra is about heart connection, not about perfection in chanting. Hare addresses the divine energy of the Lord, and Krishna and Rama are names of the Supreme Lord. Chant each word slowly and clearly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You can continue at your own pace, letting each syllabus resonate in the mind. Notice the vibration, the energy each word carries. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. As you chant, sense a gentle vibration as though the sound is cleansing and harmonizing your entire being, your mind, your intelligence, your body, your senses. It's okay if the mind might wander. That's completely natural. Each time you notice your mind drifting, bring it back to the mantra. Bring it back to the sound. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Let this mantra be an expression of love and connection to the divine. You can now visualize a loving presence. You can think of it as spiritual energy filling your heart, with warmth and light. And sometimes it will help if you can visualize while you are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It will help if you can visualize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The description of the Supreme Personality is given so succinctly in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Begin by meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord and slowly go all the way up his limbs, all the way up till you see the smiling face of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Offer any emotions back into this mantra, letting them be transformed into a deeper sense of connection. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Your mind might wander into thoughts about the day, into plans for your Sunday, into memories of yesterday. When you notice that, take a gentle breath, acknowledging the thought without judgment, and guide your awareness back to your mantra. It's like returning home to a place of comfort and warmth. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And think of each distraction as a chance to reaffirm your intention of wanting to receive the mercy from the Lord. Every time the mind goes away, bring it back because we are hungry for the mercy of the Lord. Don't see this distraction as an obstacle. See it as part of the journey. Every time you come back, you deepen your focus and your devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Let's take the chanting inward. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. You can now slowly open your eyes. How do all of you feel? So you see, this simple process is actually allowing you to go into this 8 processes of Ashtanga Yoga, right? You already know what the 4 regulative principles are. You know what is niyam, all right? What you need to observe. And then your asana, your posture, sit up straight. Your pranayam, we started off by controlling our breath and then also telling ourselves that we're going to remove all the distractions. The entire process allows us to concentrate, and then we get into meditation. And you get into samadhi, which is full absorption in the Maha Mantra. Anyone would like to share your experience by doing this?
It was very ecstatic, Prabhuji. We have never done, this kind of, like Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanting ever before. And this was a combination of meditation and also japa. And you're right that it has all the 8 elements. All these elements are already there. But we always start off by just just the chanting and not doing this before. Now I think we should be doing this before, so that we calm our minds, we concentrate our minds, and then we do the chanting. And the chanting which you said to do inward, it was like it had the maximum effect, I think so, because we are
Thank
chanting externally, but we should actually be chanting internally, which was very powerful actually, I think.
Yeah, very
But we
nice. But
should
at
be
the
able to
same,
sustain this actually, Hari Prabhuji, because maybe in our, chanting, if anyone does for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, like this portion we should be able to sustain for the maximum time, but I don't know if like how much we can sustain this kind of chanting.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's okay. At least do it for 15 minutes. 15 minutes is okay, no? Like this morning, my wife and I, we went for a walk, a long walk. And I was telling her that, it's so difficult to actually really focus on my chanting while I'm walking. All right. This is the right way of doing it. But, sometimes we just try to satisfy the requirement. Anyone else
Uh,
would like to share?
Yeah,
Yes.
Prabhuji, I would like to share because normally we have been talking about this, but main thing is when we do it in a practical. So yes, it clears lot of our doubt, and you present the model what how we should do it. So as a immature, the person who is just doing and struggling, this is a blessing. So
Yeah.
yes,
I mean, I
thank you,
also learned
Prabhuji.
it. Yes, yes. It's a process, right? So when Srila Prabhupada was explaining, he told us just listen to the mantra. Just listen to the mantra. Hearing is most important, right? Of course, he was a pure devotee, and anyone around him, uh, you know, could feel this. But um, not but essentially, any way which allows you to go deeper, any way which allows you to focus your mind and focus on the Maha Mantra, that is going to make it really potent, right? Just imagine so much distractions going on. You're watching TV, etc., and then you are chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Can you focus? Is your mind on your mobile phone or on the TV or the distractions in the house, etc.? What's the value of that chanting? It's still valuable, all right? Even when someone chants jokingly without understanding what he's doing, it is still valuable. But you can bring it many, many notches higher if you are totally focused on the sound vibration. The entire process which we did was essentially to calm our mind down and to focus on the chanting, on the hearing, and going deeper and deeper and deeper. Thank you, Shalini, for sharing your realizations. Anyone else would like to share your reflections on this exercise?
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this session. I've been doing meditation previously also, and like many who have done, I've had profound experiences. So that combined with bhakti here was honestly too overwhelming for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was too overwhelming.
Oh, okay. Nice, Mataji. Thank you. That's what we aim to do, and if you were to go further into chapter number 28, bring it one notch higher, which is, uh, Bhagavatam is explained the yogi should clear the passage of the vital air by breathing in the following manner. First, he should inhale very deeply, then hold the breath and finally exhale. Or reversing the process, the yogi can first exhale, then hold the breath and finally inhale. This is done so that the mind may become steady and free from external disturbances. If I'd shown you this and moved on without really practicing it, no one would have gotten it. But because we practice it before seeing this, now you realize that, wow, this really works. That's not all. The yogis who practice such breathing exercises are very soon freed from all mental disturbances. In the process, I told you all, forget about all this. Remove. It's all between me and Krishna right now. I'm in an interview with the Lord, in an interview for a job appointment, etc. I don't look at any of the distractions. My focus is on the Lord only. All right. By practicing this process of pranayam, one can eradicate the contaminations of the physiological condition. And by concentrating the mind, one can become freed. Now, take it a few notches further. When the mind is perfectly purified by the practice of yoga, one should concentrate on the tip of the nose and see the form of the Supreme Person. Imagine you are chanting, and now in your mind, verses number 13, 14, 15 until 18 are going on. What is 13? 13 is explaining the Supreme Person has a cheerful lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes like the interior of a lotus and swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. His body bears a conch, a discus, all right, Sudarshan chakra, and mace in three of his hands. His loins are covered with a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. Imagine the Lord is in yellow clothes. On his chest, he bears the mark of Srivatsa, a curl of white hair. The brilliant Kasturba jewel is suspended from his neck. So imagine all of this. He wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvan flowers, and a swarm of bees intoxicated by his delicious fragrance hums around the garland. He is fully superbly adorned with a pearl necklace, a crown, and a pair of armlets, bracelets, and the ankles. All right. And his loins and hips are encircled by a girdle. He stands on the lotus of the devotee's heart, on your heart. All right. He's most charming to look at, and his serene aspect gladdens the eyes and souls of the devotees who hold him. The Lord is eternally very beautiful and is worshipped by all the inhabitants of all planets. He's ever youthful. You don't see him getting old. He's always eager to bestow his mercy. All right. So this entire description is there. Yesterday, what I did was I went into Canva, I went into ChatGPT, and I pasted all of this and told ChatGPT and Canva to please, paint how the Lord would look like with all these descriptions. Amazing. All right. Amazing. Well done. All right. So this is how we should be meditating on the Lord.
So what was the result, Prabhuji?
It was quite good, actually. It was quite good. I'll share with you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite good. Although, I had to keep on telling ChatGPT, no, but you forgot the Sudarshan Chakra, you forgot this. I don't see the Srivatsa. I have to keep on scolding the bugger to to improve. Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's class, and next week we will go deeper into this process, right, of this guided meditation. We will go deeper. We will go from the feet of the Lord all the way to the countenance, to the crown of the Lord, right? So when you chant, you are actually also visualizing the Lord. All right. And then in the following weeks, we will go a few notches. When the first mantra you are chanting, you are doing this. The second mantra, you are chanting and you are visualizing Narsinghadev with Prahlad Maharaj, two personalities. The third mantra, you will be visualizing three personalities, which is Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. The fourth mantra, you will be visualizing four personalities, Lord Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman. The fifth mantra, you will be visualizing five personalities, the Panchatattva or Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. The sixth, you will be visualizing the six Goswamis who made all of this scripture so relatable, so accessible. Seventh, we will be looking at the seventh rishis. All right. Eighth, we will be looking at the eight gopis, the eight principal gopis. The ninth, we will introduce Radharani, and 10th, we will introduce Sham Sundar. All right. So if we can, somehow control our breath, manage our breath, if we can remove the distractions, right? And if we can chant while visualizing, can you imagine how strong this is? All right. You're engaging all your senses. You are engaging all your senses. Your breath, your mind, your intelligence, right? Everything is being engaged. Right? Okay, so let's make spirituality relatable. It's not something which is so difficult. Okay, Venkatesh, any realizations you like to share?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, from down under.
Well, I would say it's a good start for me to start on this, Prabhuji, but I think it's sometimes a bit difficult to concentrate and focus because you get easily distracted. So
It's a
I mean,
deliberate practice.
yeah. So is there like a sustained like period where you can see like some results, or where or did I hit a sweet spot or something like that when you do this? I'm just a bit curious.
Why are you attached to the results? Why are you attached? No, just it's a process. For a devotee, the process is chanting the Lord's names.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
because
and then when the devotee leaves the body, when he goes to the spiritual world, the devotee wants to just continue chanting the Lord's name, wants to continue to serve the Lord. So it's a process which never ends.
Okay.
All right. It's just that we bring our material concoction into all of this. Not okay. If I do this, then scientifically, after how long will I get the results? No, La Prabhu, no need all that. No, just enjoy the process. Why do you want to see? Why? My Guru Maharaj, at the age of 21, he just heard the Maha Mantra record. He just went to a bookshop. He came across Bhagavad Gita. 21-year-old boy, my Guru Maharaj. In UK, he just graduated from engineering university. Graduated 21 years old. He was working for a few months. One night he heard the Maha Mantra on the radio. And the next day, by coincidence, he went into a bookshop and he found the Bhagavad Gita. He found the science of self-realization. It changed his entire life. From 1971 until today, he has been chanting non-stop. All right, 16 rounds. And you want to hear how he chants, Prabhu? I tell you, you cannot imagine how his chanting is, how he chants on a daily basis. He takes about 4 hours.
Okay, wow.
Just listen to this.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Wow.
So no, it's the process. It's just the process. And why is he able to sustain this from 1971 for 54 years? How to sustain? Because it provided him so much of joy.
Okay.
But I love your question. Thank you very much, because it's playing even in my mind.
Thanks, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Deepa Mataji, any realizations?
Just Prabhuji's trying to trying to be more committed.
Okay.
Trying to be more committed and more focused, because mind is still, whenever chanting, mind is running here and there. But I'll try this yoga process. Let's see.
Okay.
If I can also. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's class. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
His
Krishna.
Grace
Thank you,
Padmalosam
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.